Bienvenue. Welcome once again to another live stream. I'm very pleased to say I have with me the incredible gentleman that is Richard Pendry of the Risk Consultancy, a man who can tell you many hair-raising stories about how preparation can indeed prevent piss-poor performance, and more importantly, can prevent potential ultimately damning performance. But today, we're going to be talking and focusing on three elements. We spoke of this briefly beforehand. We want to talk about what it is to understand the operational environment. Then we're going to talk a little bit about direct and indirect threats in this spin-off from the troubles that are currently in the Middle East. And we're not talking from a political standpoint. We're talking about how they might affect us from a security perspective, and also finally how this might affect us back here in Blighty in the UK. So once again, welcome, Richard Pendry.
Gareth, thank you very much. I've got to apologise before we start. We had a nice little routine going every Friday afternoon. We were doing this live stream, and I really enjoyed it. But we've missed the last two Fridays, so I need to apologise. And the thing is, that was beyond my control. I work as a consultant, and my clients needed me over the last two Fridays. There's nothing
wrong in that. Nothing wrong in that.
Yeah. Okay, so I do apologise, but there we are. And yeah, I've had to skip the last two Fridays purely because I've been out. I've been helping my clients because of the subject that we're talking about today, and it's the heightened risk that we've got from things beyond our control, which are going off in the Middle East, which is, we all know what's going on, and it's all over the TV every single day. Yeah, so that's where I've been for the last 2 weeks. Yeah. Okay.
How are we going to dive into this? Let's talk about operational.
Well, look. Okay.
Go on then.
I want to tell you. I want to tell you. I want to be able to give you an example, and I want to give you anecdotal evidence of this, and I'm going to do it in something that happened to me a few years ago when I was out in Afghanistan. And I want to tell you the story, and then after I tell you the story, then we can then link things into it. Okay, so the story goes back to this was in Afghanistan back in 2009, 2010, and I was in the eastern city of Jalalabad. Jalalabad is the furthest eastern city in Afghanistan, and in Nangarhar province. It's to the right of Kabul, around about 2 hours drive down this spectacular gorge, this ravine, something like through the Hindu Kush. Amazing. Anyway, and I was tasked with setting up a operation there in stabilization back in 2009 with the first sort of surges into Afghanistan. So anyway, one of my tasks was to go to a place called Asadabad. Okay, now Asadabad is the capital of Nuristan. Okay, the one of the eastern regions. It's called Nuristan. Nuristan, Nur in Arabic means light, but previously Nuristan had been called Kafiristan. Not a very nice term in Arabic, kafir, non-believer. And that was because that particular area was the last area in Afghanistan to actually submit to Islam. And that's why they called it Kafiristan. So, so now they call it Nuristan. But anyway, okay, I want you to think. Go back to Robert Downey Jr., okay? It's a bit off on a tangent here, but bear with me on this. Robert Downey Jr. and the first of his Iron Man films.
I remember it well.
Yeah,
I remember they were out in the middle of nowhere, and they were testing the Jericho weapon. I remember.
Yeah. Well, the character, Robert Downey Jr.'s character, actually goes to Nuristan, okay, to develop this weapon that they've got, and he gets captured by the Taliban. The reason he's there because it's so damn dangerous. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, that's the story of Robert Downey Jr. And Iron Man there. This location of Asadabad was also the location where it is thought that Alexander the Great crossed over the Hindu Kush into Pakistan. So it's a very historic place. And back in 2009, it was extremely dangerous. It was very dangerous. I had to go there on a covert mission to do some bits and pieces I set things up for the organization I was working for. And so I couldn't go up in my European attire because I would be pinged straight away and it would be extremely dangerous for me. I would probably end up in an orange jumpsuit somewhere. So I went up in my local clothes. I had a cool flat hat. I had my local clothes on, and we went up in a low-profile vehicle with myself and my Afghan colleagues. I was the only sort of international member there. The rest, there were three of my local colleagues, and we walked around the city. We find nobody taking any notice at all. The other thing that I need to mention is, although ethnicity, in Afghanistan, Arab-looking guys and very darker skin. In Nuristan, fair skin and blue eyes is quite common. And I can go in. That is because the theory behind that is that when Alexander the Great came through that area, many of his soldiers, the Greek soldiers who were fairer skinned and had blue eyes back in BC, they stayed. It's part of my book, actually. It's a good. I encapsulate that in my new book about Alexander the Great in Afghanistan. But anyway, so I'm walking around Asadabad with my local colleagues, and we decide to go into a local tea room, and it's on the first floor. So before we go in, I have a little check to see where the entrances are and the exits are of the tea room, and we walk in and we sit in a location within the tea room, no tables, all cushions, and we sit in a location within the tea room where we've got eyes on both the doors. As I said, I'm dressed in my local attire. I've got a Glock 17 stuck down my pants, just in case it gets really bad. And we enjoy our cup of tea. And the thing is, you have a little istika, a little glass, and the tea is filled all the time, very much like the Arabs. And you just drink your tea. When it gets empty, they tip it up, they pour it up, and you just carry on. And when you've had enough, you put the glass on the side to say no, not anymore. So we're happily talking away and having a chat and discussing what we're going to do, and the conversation just stops as a group of men come through the door. And it was one of those, like when in the Western film where everybody stops and the tumbleweed, boom, boom, boom. And my Afghan colleague said to me, "Mr. Richard, we need to go right now." I said, "Okay, fine." We got up and we went through the other door, down the stairs, into the vehicle, which was parked outside, and then we got out of there really, really quickly. So as we departed, as we're in the vehicle, we're off. I say to my colleague, "Why?" And he said, "Bad men, Mr. Richard, Taliban, you didn't want to be there. Didn't want to be there at all." Fine. Okay. So let's take that story, okay? There's three elements to that story. It's being informed. Where am I? Okay. What am I up against? What are the threats I'm up against? Okay. What's my plan if these things are realized, if those threats are realized? And all that comes down to situational awareness. Now, the best way to stop a bad thing from happening is not for it to happen at all. Okay? And that's what we did. We were aware of what was going on around us, and we conducted the plan. We knew the vehicle was outside. We go down, we get into it, and we get out. And that was it. It was as simple as that. But simplicity is extremely effective. So when we look at the things that are going on right now, and we you know, we can't avoid this. The police, the security services have said recently there's an increased risk of a terrorist incident in the run up to Christmas. That's just the reality of it. We're on substantial at the moment, and substantial means the terrorist threat. Substantial means that an attack is likely. Okay, so we have to be really, really aware, situationally aware of what's going on around us. We need to stay informed through the media, through the news, through social media. Okay, and we need to be able to identify a plan should something go wrong, what we need to do to counter that. And the thing is, you can't, it's very, very difficult to come up with a plan when things have gone loud and people are running around. Very difficult to come up with an effective response then. You have to do it beforehand. Okay.
Wow. Okay.
Any questions, Gareth? I covered a big chunk there. There's a lot of stuff going on there, a lot of heavy things. Okay.
No, it's just I was back in the bar with you, man, and it's hairy stuff. It's all about having prepared the way in advance, isn't it? It's not
Absolutely
not flying by the seat of your pants, being prepared.
But it's also being able to trust the people that you were with to give you the right advice. And I would say to business people, have you surrounded yourself with the people that will be effective for you? Have you done that? Do you trust them? I trust. I had to trust my life with these guys. Absolutely, 100%. And we know that we know there was a lot of what we call green on blue. There was a lot of NATO soldiers, British soldiers, American soldiers killed by the Afghan soldiers that they were training. We called it green on blue. Okay, and you know the Afghans had a bit of a bad reputation for doing this. But you know, honestly, and I'm still doing business out in Afghanistan with training for NGOs and things like that. I found when you get there, the majority of people, that's all they want is for a secure environment. Secure environment where they can conduct themselves, where their children can go to school, where they can go out and get a job, and that's what the vast majority of people want. Okay, it's only when you go further up the hierarchy where you get the problems with the politicians. But honestly, Afghanistan was an incredible place, and I'm looking forward to going back there. Hopefully, in 2024.
Right. All right. Well, then, I think we've covered the first two topics in many ways. I'd like to touch on, because let's focus a little bit more without getting political. The situation in the Middle East, and then if you can talk a little bit on that, and then how the ramifications of that affect us here.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, the thing is, what I say when I meet my clients is you have to concentrate on things that you control. We cannot. The things that we see on the TV are extremely upsetting. It's a bit like climate change. You know, I can't personally do anything to affect that. You can't. Yeah. You can do a little bit of green, recycling and all that stuff. You can get an electric car. But in the grand scheme of things, it is way out of our control. So you need, and that's when you get anxiety. Right. Anxiety comes from being in a situation where you feel that it's out of control. So to bring that confidence back to you, let's concentrate on what you can control. And in the sphere of security, that's relatively straightforward. Okay. And, when I look at resilience for my clients, we look at risk management, crisis management, business continuity. Let's get things sorted out for that in case one of these unwanted events occur. Understand what's going on in your environment, your operational environment.
Right. Wow. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about how that could affect us back here in the UK in a little bit more detail.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, we've got jihadist terrorism and we've got far right terrorism, and they are, again, apolitical on this. We're looking at it through.
And the trouble is, we've got the irritant between them, which is the catalyst, which is the activism. The activism in itself is probably quite polite and quite calm. But the problem is, it acts as a catalyst, does it not? And excites.
Absolutely. Well, we've become a very polarized society, But in the field of counterterrorism, we look at it delivering counterterrorism. It's an ice cold dish. We never do anything. We never do anything in the heat of battle type thing. It's always cold and it's calculated, and that's what we have to look at. But there is an increase. That is why. The UK security services have said recently that be aware when you go to Christmas markets. Now, I don't want to put people off Christmas markets. And in the UK, our security services have done a fantastic job of hostile vehicle mitigation. That's one of the threats that we've got, driving vehicles into crowds of people. So if you're going to a Christmas market, the threat of a vehicle impacting on you has been greatly reduced. However, the other main sort of terrorist tactic at the moment is bladed weapons, and having a kitchen knife on your person it's a very it can be done so easily, can't it? But when we come down to that type of scenario, you just need to be aware of what is going on around you. Now, body language has saved my bacon on several occasions. Being aware of people in my immediate environment which are acting in a strange manner, okay, and I then observe them as possible threats, and I get away from them. And that doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be a terrorist, okay? It can be a person who's drunk or under the influence of drugs or mental health issues, okay? You really want to put as much distance between these people as you can in case it gets out of hand.
All right. Well, look, I'm loving all this. It's good knowledge. Very briefly before we go, I'd like to briefly mention your book. Would you do me a favor, and afterwards in the stream on your side put in there a link to it as well? Tell us briefly about the book, and because I'm trying to get people to see it. It's a bloody good read.
Well, it's been described as Andy McNabb's Bravo 20 meets Dan Brown's Da Vinci Code. That's not me. That was somebody that, somebody read it. Anyway, the first book, Damascus Redemption, was released in 2016, and it's out there on Amazon. The one I'm writing at the moment is Alexander the Great in Afghanistan, and some bits and pieces there, and his tomb, and a lot of intrigue and things like that. And I'm still fighting over a name for the book. But Damascus Redemption is a parallel story. It's Iraq 2007 and goes back to the time of the Third Crusade in 1191. I've got two brilliant characters there. Mason, who's the modern day character, and St. John de Guise, who's the Crusading knight back in 1191. And it's a rip roaring yarn, if I do say so myself.
No, please, and I would say put the link in the channel afterwards. Guys, thank you very much for sharing this time with you. I hope you've enjoyed that. I know that you might think that we are comforted and cosseted by living in this first world country that we call Britain. We think that we've got problems here, we've got difficulties. We don't really, but we still should keep our eyes open for risk and mitigate it where we can by doing a little bit of preventative. And you know what? that may be, as you say, noticing odd behavior and putting distance between yourself and it. Thank you once again, Richard. And I wish everyone listening a wonderful, safe weekend, and of course, good mental health. Bye-bye now.
Can I just